Hey Jerry, how are
Hey,
you?
good. How are you?
I am good. And he's Jeff Parker, the traductor.
Hi, Jerry. Nice
Hi.
to meet you.
Mira, vamos a hablar en dos idiomas. Yo voy a hablar en español y Jeff va a traducir para que todos podamos entender lo que tú quieras decir.
We'll kind of conduct this whole interview in bilingually. So Boris will be asking the questions in English. I'll translate, and then you answer. I'll translate your answers. So
Okay, no
keep
problem.
everybody on the same page.
And I'm so nervous. I'm
No,
really
no,
excited.
No, don't be.
Well, I'd like to welcome and thank you for being a part of this conversation. It's such a pleasure to have you here with us. Thank you for all the wonderful music that you have created and presented. And that's inspired so many of us. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Bueno, estaba dándole la bienvenida y hablando más o menos un poco lo que significa Jerry Hey para mí. Y bueno, vamos a conversar y tratar de aprovechar el tiempo para conocer la vida de Jerry Hey, su experiencia y todo lo y hablar detalles técnicos de producción, etcétera, porque Jerry Hey es la persona que gracias a él escuchamos todo lo que hoy podemos disfrutar.
And first of all, thank you, Jerry, for being a part of this. We'll try to keep it as fluid as possible, and
No problem.
If anyone wants to put up, we'll try to deal with. So, great. Thank you very much, and let's get on the way.
Bueno, para comenzar, queríamos ver si nos puedes contar tus inicios en la música y cómo llegaste a estudiar trompeta.
First question is if you could tell us about your first experiences with the trumpet. How did you begin to study? Who were your influences, and how did that whole process begin?
My parents were both musicians. I had two brothers who played trombone and tuba, and through them, I started playing trumpet very early. And then I took from my local band director for a while. Then in high school, I took from Charlie Geyer, who was then playing in the Chicago Symphony, taught at Eastman, Northwestern, now teaching at Rice. Took from him in high school. And then after that, went to Indiana University and studied with William Adam there.
Está diciendo que ella viene de una familia musical. Sus papás músicos. Tiene un hermano trombonista, otro hermano tubista. Entonces siempre estuvo con la música. Su primer llegada a la trompeta fue estudiar con Charles Geyer de la Sinfónica de Chicago. Después de eso, empezó a estudiar en la Universidad de Indiana con Bill Adam.
¿Podrías contarnos algunas de tus anécdotas cómicas favoritas en sección de estudio o de grabación?
Any comical anecdotes about recording sessions that you'd like to share?
There are not too many that I can share. Yeah. Let's see. Funny recording. When we went in to every time we went into a session, we always had a good time. Everybody was there to do the business, but it was also because we always played together with the same people. It was sort of a family. So we always had a really good time, a lot of clowning around. And, the Quincy sessions were especially that, because that was really a family.
Está diciendo que ella siempre la onda de grabar es pasarlo bien. Tiene un equipo bastante bien sólido de formación y se grabaron ya todo el equipo, siempre como equipo. Sobre todo en las sesiones con Quincy Jones hay mucho humor. muchas tallas, pero un profesionalismo ya de buena onda.
Good, good. Mira, sabemos que Charles Gayer y Bill Adams fueron tus maestros, pero en términos de organización y composición, ¿tuvo David Baker alguna contribución en tu formación?
We know you just told us that you studied with Charles Gayer and Bill Adams as far as the trumpet part of your life. Being at Indiana, what was the influence of someone like David Baker to your composition and arranging?
I never took any composition or arranging at Indiana, and only didn't play in David Baker's jazz band, but I did take his jazz improvisation course, which was open to anyone in the university. So you had people there who like literally couldn't read music, and he would at the end of a semester amazingly be able to teach them to play a rudimentary solo on giant steps.
Great. Está diciendo que estudió trompeta en la Universidad de Indiana.
Perfecto.
Pero no estudió composición ni arreglos. Participó en Big Band y tomó un ramo de improvisación de David Baker, que es un personaje ya de la educación de jazz importantísimo. Pero nunca estudió composición en la universidad.
Wow. Wow. Por ejemplo, teniendo en cuenta su currículum, ¿cuáles son sus artistas favoritos con los que siempre ha trabajado y por qué?
So, taking into consideration your career, who have been your favorite artists to have worked with and why?
Quincy always is the first one that comes to mind. He's such a great guy. The music is always great. The songs are great. The atmosphere is great. Anything that he has been associated with have been as good as it can get. Of course, including Michael Jackson and everybody else that he produced that we played on. David Foster, an incredible musician, just amazing in the studio. He's a great pianist, perfect pitch, great arranger, great producer, just brilliant in the studio. Maurice White with Earth, Wind, and Fire. I mean, there's a reason that these guys were who they were or are who they are because they're so great. Jay Graydon with Al Jarreau and some other people. It's hard to beat those guys.
Yeah.
Wow. Me imagino que debe ser un... Traduce y después...
Okay. Comentó que ya el más capo es Quincy Jones, que por la variedad y calidad de trabajos de artistas que trabajan con Quincy como productor, David Foster como un tipo de oídos absolutos, un tremendo pianista, productor, y todos los Jay Graydon, todos los artistas que son productores de otros gigantes, como Al Jarreau, Earth, Wind and Fire, Michael Jackson.
Well, hay Maurice White. Good. Debe ser un placer, una exquisitez trabajar con todo ese equipo o con todo ese tipo de personas.
Boris is mentioning just what an incredible experience that must have been to work with all these wonderful groups and produce so much music that's a part of us.
It was a good time to be involved in all that. I was fortunate to meet Quincy when I first came to Los Angeles, and that just opened the door up to a lot of great music.
Dijo que conoció ya a Quincy Jones recién llegando a Los Ángeles después de Indiana, y qué experiencia, qué apertura de la carrera.
Wow. Por ejemplo, tengo muchas preguntas, pero a ver, quiero irme un poquito a aconsejar a los trompetistas, a las nuevas formaciones. ¿Cuál consideras que es la faceta más importante de tocar la trompeta?
Okay, if we could ask you about the trumpet now, what would be your advice to young trumpeters? You know, what are those things that we really need to get taken care of to be successful on the trumpet?
Y un consejo para los jóvenes músicos y arreglistas.
Well, coming from Mr. Adam, it always starts with getting a great sound, and everything else is a result of that. So if you can concentrate and imagine a great sound, you know, listening to whoever your favorite trumpet player is, be it Adolf Herseth in the Chicago Symphony, who was one of my first influences on the trumpet, or Maynard Ferguson or Doc Severinsen, or all of those guys with a really great sound. Just imagine that sound for yourself, try to get that, and then everything else can follow.
Muy importante, dijo que ya todo empieza con sonido. Si puedes escuchar un sonido ideal, perfecto, que vas sacando de distintos artistas influenciales, ya Maynard Ferguson, Doc Severinsen, hay que tener todo en el almacén mental y activarlo. Y siempre tratar de pulir. Pero siempre escuchando buenos artistas y inspirándose en eso.
Good. La verdad es que estoy tratando de guardar toda esta información.
We're trying to organize all our information to deal with, you know.
And let me add to that last thing that one time when I was doing a clinic with Arturo Sandoval, I said, you know, Arturo Sandoval can play anything anybody can ever write, anything anybody can ever think of. He's amazing, but the main reason that you listen to Arturo Sandoval is because he's got a great sound, and you wouldn't listen to him if he sounded like, you know, kazoo. You wouldn't, you know, that's, you know, Arturo's big thing is his sound is massive.
Sí, algo importante, Jerry ha tenido la oportunidad de compartir mucho con Arturo Sandoval. Y dice que ya Arturo puede tocar todo lo que puede salir del lápiz de un compositor, sin problemas. Pero la razón principal para escuchar a Arturo es su sonido. Tremendo sonido.
Es un consejo para todos. Y un consejo para esta nueva generación, un consejo para producción, para los nuevos jóvenes que están recién partiendo.
Now switching kind of from the trumpet to the area of production and arranging. Now, what would be your best advice to young arrangers, producers, you know, people that are kind of getting in on that end of the business?
Well, trumpet is kind of a lonely instrument these days that you need to really be able to do so much more than just play trumpet these days. The guys that I know that are young guys that I know that are working a lot can operate Pro Tools. They work on their arranging. They know how to mix in Pro Tools, and they know how to operate Pro Tools. And you know, there's all of that combined. You can, you know, with the technology these days, you can sit down and you don't have to necessarily study what's, you know, big band charts or whatever, because you can sit down and you can experiment as much as you want to and hear it back, and it's pretty amazing the possibilities these days. But of course, if you study, you know, the real masters, the old big time big band arrangers like Billy Byers, Billy May, Don Costa, Nelson Riddle, study those guys just to get a basis of, you know, how they made things sound the way they did, Quincy, and then develop your own thing on that, which is what I tried to do.
dice que siendo trompetista, el trabajo de un trompetista es bastante solitario. Entonces hay que buscar crear un nexo con otras áreas de la música. Entonces hay que estudiar un poco de todo, ya practicar hacer arreglos, estudiar otros instrumentos, estudiar el trabajo de los grandes compositores arreglistas de Big Band, como Bill Holman, Billy May, hay un montón por ahí. Y sacar el máximo provecho de lo que está entre nosotros, como de música, como materiales.
Yendo un poquito a la parte personal, ¿qué compositores y arreglistas con las que ha tenido el placer de trabajar han causado el mayor efecto en ti?
This is kind of bouncing off an earlier question, but who would be the biggest top influences in your musical life?
Wow. So when this group that I was in, it was a top 40, started out as kind of a top 40 group. In the pop, for the pop stuff that we did. So of course we were listening to, back then we were listening to Aretha, some Motown stuff, early Tower of Power. There's a band called Edgar Winter's White Trash that I just listened to a couple days ago, which is still an incredible horn album, maybe one of my favorites. And again, the big band eras influenced me, from that end of it also.
Entonces está comentando que su primera experiencia era tocar en un grupo como de música popular y ver todo el nexo de artistas y repertorio. Tocaron música de Aretha Franklin, cosas como de estilo Motown, Rhythm and Blues, y ahí está toda la riqueza. Entonces, ningún personaje, sino ya estilos. Fueron ya tuvieron más influencia para Jerry.
Good. A ver, ¿qué es lo que inspira a Jerry Hey actualmente y musicalmente hablando?
What inspires you lately, musically speaking?
There are some new groups that are coming out. The guys in Dirty Loops, that I was lucky enough to play on their first record. I've heard them 4 or 5 times live, and they are amazing musicians. They can all really play their instruments, and Jonah can really sing. It's, that's an inspiring. Snarky Puppy also, a couple other bands like that I listen to. But, I still go back and listen to old Freddie Hubbard, which, to me, if I have to listen to something, that's probably what I'll go listen to get inspired. Clifford Brown, and listen to, well, and then on the other end of trumpet is Sergei Nakaryakov, who, in my opinion, is the greatest classical soloist that has ever walked this planet.
I'd have to agree with you. I just met Sergei this past summer. So,
Crazy.
Diciendo, sí, de los grupos de la actualidad, le gusta mucho Dirty Loops. Wow. También Snarky Puppy, son grupos que ya llevan ya 10 años de formación más o menos. Pero realmente si quiere inspirarse ya, escuchar a Freddie Hubbard, Clifford Brown, de los clásicos, un todo.
Bueno, Dirty Look tiene temas arreglados por Jerry, Roller Coaster, etcétera. O sea, temas realmente buenos. ¿Cuáles son los factores que considera más importantes para un músico de estudio y que sea exitoso, para ser exitoso?
What would be your keys to success for a freelance musician, a studio-based musician?
You have to be able to, play at a very high level, handle the pressure, and maybe most importantly is to have the right attitude. People want to work with people who they like, even to the point of if there's a better player that you don't like as much, you're more likely to call somebody you like. So attitude is a big influence for getting hired a lot.
Sure. Entonces dice que obviamente hay que tocar muy bien, tener todo en máximo nivel de funcionamiento y tener la actitud, como la actitud positiva, ya que tenemos que trabajar en grupos. Entonces ya siendo todas las cosas iguales, es más agradable trabajar con una persona tranquila y responsable que uno talentoso y fuera de serie. Entonces eso importa mucho, ser paciente, perseverante y positivo.
Bueno, también queremos saludar a toda la gente que se está conectando. Jerry, todos me están mostrando que mucha gente alrededor del mundo admira tu trabajo.
We're just now looking through the names that are scrolling from people that are with us now, and it's quite a list. So thank you, Jerry.
Oh, my pleasure.
El trombonista Ozzy Meléndez dice, thank you to the one of my biggest influences in my musical life is a born horn player. Thank you, Jerry Hay.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Él es un gran trombonista que está tocando con muchos artistas y nada, saludo a toda la gente que está aquí comentando.
Great. Tenemos mucha gente saludando. Muchas gracias por juntar con nosotros y sigamos.
Sí, estoy analizando preguntas. Sabemos que Jerry Hay tuvo una formación clásica, pero también su mayor carrera fue en la parte de la música popular. ¿Cuál es su compositor de música clásica favorita?
We know that your formation as a trumpet player was basically classical, studying 2 years with Charlie Guy on the C trumpet, but the main body of your work has all been popular music, jazz. Who are your favorite classical composers?
Composers? Well, I guess Bach would be my number one guy. It just seems like everything for me lines up harmonically for me with Bach. But then I go to the next is probably Chopin, Ravel, Debussy, the Impressionist guys. I love that. Stravinsky is, probably way above me, but amazing stuff. There's so many, some of the Russian composers and Rachmaninoff and a lot. I listen to quite a bit of classical music and have for a long time. And I was going to be an orchestra trumpet player, studying with Charlie Geyer. But, I went to Indiana and then heard Charlie Davis and Larry Hall playing all sorts of music. And that was I said, I want to do that, play anything.
All right. Great. Dijo que era de sus compositores clásicos favoritos, Juan Sebastián Bach, por lo arquitecto armónico, las líneas, las armonías, hasta Igor Stravinsky, Rachmaninoff, Debussy, Ravel, el impresionismo. Escucha mucha música clásica, dice.
Good. Bueno, quiero también saludar a la gente que se ha ido sumando.
We'd also like to say hello to some people that are joining us.
Y Alejandro Carballo, trombonista de Luis Miguel, le escribe: Jerry, thank you so much for all the wonderful music you brought the Luis Miguel brass section.
Yeah, very welcome.
Bueno, sigamos. Mira, hay una pregunta que está haciendo el público.
Okay, there's a question. What's your appreciation of the difference of styles between Arturo Sandoval and someone like James Morrison?
They can both kind of play anything they want to play. I haven't heard James Morrison play in as many styles as I've heard Arturo. Arturo can play anything in any style, and it's appropriate. I mean, he can play Maurice Andre, and he can play Louis Armstrong. He could play, play Arturo Sandoval. He can, James Morrison is basically more of his style. Amazing pickup trumpet and the trombone, and it's crazy. So, it's just stylistically different. They're both incredible.
Dice que ya los dos son increíbles. A ese nivel ya son todos grosos. No he escuchado tanta variedad de estilo de James Morrison como del de Arturo Sandoval. Arturo puede tocar todo: piano, percusión, trompeta, multiinstrumentista. Grandes.
Vamos a seguir un poquito con las preguntas del público para que haya más interacción.
So now we're gonna go to some questions that are coming through from Instagram.
Okay.
Aldo pregunta: Boris, pregúntale qué es lo que más le costaba en cuanto a la técnica y cómo resolvió.
What was your biggest hurdle technically? Sorry, I'm speaking Spanish. What has been your biggest hurdle technically as a trumpeter, and how do you get through the rough spots?
Because I started so early, I was playing through the Arbin book by the time I was 10, kind of. I could play, most of the Arbin's book pretty good. The guy my band director was an excellent teacher who had a really great son as a trumpet player who studied with Herseth. So, it had an advantage there. So that the literal technical part of trumpet was pretty easy for me. The physical part of trumpet didn't really come until I went to Indiana. And it took me a couple of years of 10 hours a day of practicing to get to where I could play all over the horn comfortably. So that was probably the hardest moment, the biggest hurdle.
Dice que Jerry empezó desde muy pequeño a tocar la trompeta. Entonces ya a los 10 años, por ejemplo, ya podía tocar todo lo que estaba en el libro Hartman. Su primer salto como para enfrentar la trompeta físicamente fue cuando llegó a estudiar a la Universidad de Indiana. Y solucionó eso a través de estudiar 10 horas diarias durante dos años. Entonces, no ha hablado de dificultades, sino de cómo superar todo en forma permanente.
Good. Mira, hay una pregunta muy buena que es esta. Jerry, ¿qué es lo que echas de menos en la música actual respecto a viejos tiempos? ¿Crees que los arreglos se han convertido en algo mucho menos apreciado por la industria por sus costos?
Great question. how would you look at where we're going these days and compare it to, you know, what we're coming from? You know, the golden age where there were big bands and, you know, productions and you know, just much more music available. How do you see the difference between that period and today?
For me, when I came to Los Angeles, it was kind of an if you're good enough, you will work in this town. And now with not enough work for everybody and a lot of really great trumpet players, you know, you have to, as I said before, you have to be able to do a lot. Pro Tools, engineering, arranging, songwriting, all of the social media, you have to, you know, promote yourself. And the best way I see about doing that is, you know, having some kind of band of your own, which, you know, I was also in when we moved to Los Angeles, a band, which helped. And, you know, and that way you have a vehicle so you can be, so people can hear you, you know, and start a band and do the music that you want to play and do it as good as you can do it. And hopefully someone will hear it and, you know, you can progress in that direction and see what happens.
Está diciendo que ya en el pasado había época de mucho más música, mucho más necesidad de tener músicos, ya especialistas, ya instrumentistas. Ha cambiado todo hoy. No es suficiente solamente tocar bien un instrumento, sino ya hay que experimentar con mucho más cosas. Trabajar con Pro Tools, trabajar un poco con hacer arreglos, producciones. Y una de las cosas más importantes para desarrollar todo eso es estar involucrado en algún ensamble, tener una banda propia, donde están experimentando.
Mira, y si fuese posible preguntar, cuando le encomiendan hacer un arreglo de brass, ¿cuáles son las principales áreas que toma en cuenta para realizar ese arreglo?
When someone sends you a project and they want a horn arrangement, how do you go about that? Where do you start?
Well, these days, people send me an MP3 of a song that they have, and sometimes they'll have some kind of synth horn idea, or maybe not. Back in the old days when Quincy or David Foster, any of those guys would send me a cassette of the song, and they say, just do your thing. You know, they knew what I could do and my style, and if it was appropriate for that song, they would just send it to me and let me do what I do. And there was no such thing as like doing a horn demo then, you know, so we walked in, nobody knew what was going to be what I wrote. And, you know, we would work it out in the studio then, especially with Earth, Wind and Fire. We did a lot of that, you know, did a lot of adjusting in the studio with them.
Dice que a veces llega un tema años atrás en cassette con unos guías para armonizar, para hacer el arreglo de bronces. O puede llegar el tema, como en el caso de Quincy Jones o David Foster, enviaron los temas en cassette nomás y con libertad absoluta a Jerry a jugar, a hacer su arreglo.
Súper. Hay una configuración súper particular de la música de Jerry Hey, que es la configuración de 3 trompetas, 2 trombones, y se ha convertido en el sonido característico de su sección de brass. ¿Qué lo llevó a esta combinación?
How did you come up with your classic lineup? You know, the five-piece lineup.
Well, the band that I was in, Sea Wind, we had myself and a saxophone player as full-time horn players. Then our keyboard player, Larry Williams, also played saxophone. So it started out as the 3 of us. And we did some projects early on when we moved to Los Angeles as just the three. And then when we got into doing Quincy's projects, just seemed like it needed more. We needed to have a little bigger sound. So 5 that's what Tower Power had, you know, and I liked the way that sounded. And since Seawind had done some Tower Power songs when we were a top 40 band, so I kind of knew, you know, as best I could transcribe Greg Adams' arrangements. I knew how to do that, and I liked the way that sounded. So it became 5 because of that, for Michael Jackson, Brothers Johnson, a few of those things. And then because of the double tracking, I figured out a way that we could do it with 4 horns, and if it needed to have a baritone sax on it, we could put another track on, now with the availability of more tracks. So it got down to 4 horns for everything after that I have done.
Dice que ella, en el principio, cuando estaba ella trabajando con Seawind, eran 3 vientos. Larry Williams tocaba el teclado, pero también trompeta. Llegando a Los Ángeles, trabajando con Quincy, con proyectos de Michael Jackson, se dio cuenta que necesitaba algo más potente, más variedad de voces. Y con las posibilidades de grabar multipistas, ahí se podía ampliar, agregar saxo barítono, por ejemplo, o jugar un poco con las dimensiones de las voces.
Súper. ¿Cómo nació ese nombre Seawind? ¿Fue alguien lo creó o fue un consenso de todo el grupo?
So tell us a little bit about Seawind. Where's the name come from? Who were the principals? When did you start? What brought that about?
So at Indiana University, I had met Larry Hall, another excellent trumpet player, and he was 2 years older. He is 2 years older than I am, and he had gone to Hawaii to play some shows in Hawaii. So he called me up one day, and they were looking for another trumpet player. So I decided to leave college in the middle of my 3rd year and go over to Hawaii to be over there. So in addition to Larry Hall, the saxophone player in Seawind was over in Hawaii also, and Larry Williams, keyboard player, saxophone player in Seawind, also came over. All of us from Indiana University to Hawaii. And then we were playing a show, and the show ended, and we didn't have anything to do, so we kind of formed a band just to play stuff that we wanted to play in freebie concerts around in parks and stuff. And that was kind of the basis of the beginning of Seawind.
Seawind nació producto de un grupo de alumnos de Indiana, compañeros que fueron a Hawaii a tocar un show musical durante un tiempo. Y Jerry dejó sus estudios en el 3er año para ir a Hawaii y probar esa experiencia. Fueron 3 vientos. Larry Hall, Larry Williams, que son saxofonistas, tecladistas también. Y después formaron con la inquietud, ya, ¿qué hacemos? Estamos aquí en Hawaii, hagamos algo para tocar para nosotros, ya tocar fiestas y eventos. Y ahí se formó Seawind. Y empezaron a invitar más gente y ahí se fueron a Los Ángeles ya con ese grupo a triunfar.
Súper. Quisiera hacer ya preguntas un poquito más técnicas en cuanto al estudio de grabación. ¿Qué micrófonos le gusta usar para grabar metales? ¿Cuáles son sus preferidos?
Now some technical kind of recording studio questions. What for you are the ideal microphones for recording the winds?
We were lucky to have started with Bruce Swedien, who was Quincy's engineer, who had bought all of these amazing microphones early on in his career. And so we got to play in an assortment of maybe some of the greatest microphones still to this very day that he would put up in front of us. And, you know, really an assortment, but these mics were the best of these mics. So it's not really fair to say, okay, you can put this mic up in front of somebody. On a Michael Jackson, one in particular, Michael Jackson song called Speed Demon, Bruce put up an RCA 44, big microphone. And I said, Bruce, I said, you know, this is a really hard part. I don't know if that microphone's going to be able to handle this. You know, we're going to be playing loud, and, you know, they're not known for taking a lot of volume. And, you know, to Bruce's benefit, he was right. It, you know, was a magnificent microphone. So you can't necessarily say this is the best microphone. But now I have come to, through several years of looking at microphones, sorry to be so long too, by the way.
No problem.
Several years of hearing microphones from other engineers, some good, some not good. I've settled on a Neumann KM54 for trumpets and Royer 121 or 122 as the two mics that I use. I put the 121 on Bill Reichenbach on trombone always. We have done a lot of things with Bill when people would put up U47, which is a great mic, but he would overpower that microphone. And one time on a Luis Miguel session, we had to redo the whole song because the trombone mic was bad, because Bill was overloading the microphone. So I love that microphone, but not in that circumstance. So, you know, but now, so I own a KM54, several KM54s and Royers, and, you know, we use them exclusively now.
Okay, great. El estándar de la industria, Neumann KM54, KM54. Es el micrófono clásico. Ya lo conoció primera vez trabajando con Quincy Jones, que tenía ya una selección de micrófonos ya de gran nivel. Porque ya se trata de mezclar la potencia del músico con el aguante del micrófono. Y esa mezcla es muy importante. Ya, habló de una sesión con Luis Miguel, donde tuvieron que botar toda la mezcla de un tema porque el trombón estaba demasiado caliente en la mezcla, ya saturando el micrófono. Entonces, elegir equipos es algo importante.
Wow. Thank you. Mira, Diego Yarzún pregunta, si, en su experiencia me imagino, ¿cuál sería la mayor diferencia entre grabar y tocar en vivo?
What's the biggest difference between recording and playing live?
Well, when we're recording, you have to try to get the intensity recorded. So Mr. Adam always talked about you know, making sure that intensity was in the sound all the time, and you know, the way to get that is to play at a full volume. And if you record a yell and it's turned down in the mix, it still sounds like a yell. But if you record a whisper and turn it up in the mix, it still sounds like a whisper. So looking at that, we play louder recording than you could live and play a whole, you know, a big band night. There's no way you could do that. because it's, you know, you just couldn't last that long. So, you know, that's the, you know, kind of the main difference for us in the studio is, you know, we play and, you know, we'll take a break when, you know, when we need to.
Right. Dijo algo muy importante, cuando estamos grabando, tenemos que ya lograr la intensidad. La intensidad ya se graba. Por ejemplo, si grabamos un grito y bajemos el volumen, igual va a sonar un grito. Si grabamos un susurro y subimos el volumen, igual suena como un susurro. Entonces hay que grabar la intensidad que se requiere para la grabación. Y eso significa tocar más fuerte que tocamos cuando estamos en vivo.
Perfecto. Tengo quizás dos preguntas mirando hacia atrás, en su tiempo en la Universidad de Indiana, ¿qué es lo que el mayor consejo que pudo recibir de Bill Adams, tanto musical como personalmente?
Now let's focus a little bit on Bill Adams. What would you list as his kind of biggest contributions to your formation?
Well, to begin with, the greatest man I've ever met. Just brilliant. And nothing to do with trumpet. You know, with he taught let's see, what do I say here? He treated people like you want to be treated. He could inspire you to be better than you ever thought you could be. If you were having a bad day, you could go in and talk to him for 5 minutes and walk out of the studio believing that you're going to be the best trumpet player that ever walked this earth. And, you know, and that's really what it takes for you to want to get better, and it makes yourself get better. So, you know, besides all his trumpet teaching, which was, I mean, he had a degree in psychology, I believe, so he could get into your head quickly without you even knowing that was happening, and not let you get off track when you're, you know, having troubles, you know, and try to stay focused. Just, you know, I can't say enough about him. It was the tremendous good fortune on my part, because I didn't go there expecting to take from him. I didn't know who any of the trumpet teachers were when I went. A friend of mine was going, and I just happened to go along.
Dice, tiene mucho respeto para su profesor Bill Adams. Fue una tremenda persona, calidad personal, más allá de la trompeta, un excelente mentor, como ya un sensei, que también tenía un título de psicología. Entonces era una especie de psicología como motivacional en la clase. Te dejaba con la sensación que tú podías tocar increíblemente bien, cada clase. Y si empezaste mal, él te llevaba a tu mejor punto, siempre. Algo muy especial para un profesor.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you.
Volviendo un poquito, dentro de toda su historia, ¿cuál es el momento donde él más ha sentido orgullo? Quizás cuando empezó a trabajar con su hijo o no sé, su momento donde haya sentido su mayor orgullo.
What are the projects that you're most proud of? Working with your son, or?
Well, yeah, that has been great lately, working with him. He obviously has listened to all my horn parts for his whole life, so he knows exactly what it's supposed to sound like. So, and he has an incredible music memory. He hears something literally a couple times and can sing it back to you, and can sing hundreds of jazz solos, including giant steps, all kinds of Freddie Hubbard, Clifford Brown, all kinds of, you know, and then guitar solos and you name it. It's crazy. Then on top of that, he has incredible Pro Tools skills. Everybody that has seen him work has no idea what he's doing because it's so fast and it's so good. It's freaky. So we go in to record with him, and it's all set up just like we want it with my microphones. He has my mics now. So he has the mics on, you know, appropriate mics set up. He knows that we always double track. He knows there's double track, no problem. It's all set up, you know, and the panning and the sound, and we walk in and there is no, oh, let me hear the trumpets, you know, and then, okay, now 10 minutes later, let me hear the trombone. Okay, now 10 minutes, you know, none of that. You walk in, we play a couple of the hard licks just for him to hear the level. Boom, we start recording. And songs that used to take us 2 hours now take 15 minutes with him. It's crazy, really crazy. So yes, working with him is an amazing pleasure. You know, working, of course, Quincy and Bruce, David Foster, Umberto, Gatica, great engineer. George Massenberg with the Earth, Wind and Fire stuff. Mick Gazowski, another great engineer who has done he did Let's Groove Tonight with Earth, Wind and Fire and mixed a lot of stuff. Great engineer. You know, working with, again, you know, you work with the best guys and it's going to be great.
Sure. Jerry trabaja con su hijo y está orgulloso de eso porque es muy eficiente. Su hijo tiene todos los micrófonos, tiene el conocimiento, conoce muy bien Jerry, ha escuchado todo su trabajo, con razón, y es muy eficiente con Pro Tools, y casi como un ninja de Pro Tools. Pero también habló de Quincy Jones, trabajar con Earth, Wind and Fire, trabajar con todos esos artistas top. Hay una cantidad de orgullo de haber hecho todo eso.
Good. Antes que se nos acabe el tiempo, porque se nos está acabando el tiempo, quisiera preguntarle cómo es que Jerry Hey, cuál sería el legado que quiere dejar y cómo le gustaría ser recordado por siempre.
Now that we're kind of coming close to the end, time-wise, here comes the final question, or one of the final questions. How would you like to be remembered?
A good father, a good person, probably maybe in that order. A good musician, you know, and somebody who treated people properly.
Okay. La lista. Ser buen padre, buena persona, buen músico, y probablemente en esa orden. De siempre ser una persona que ha tratado bien a sus compañeros, a sus
colegas,
su equipo, sus colegas. Sí.
Bueno, solo quiero agradecer este tiempo, de regalarnos este tiempo que de verdad que es un hermoso regalo, y agradecerle por tantos años de buena música, de tan bonitos arreglos. De verdad que para mí, Jerry, tú eres mi máximo héroe musical de todos los tiempos, y esto es verdad.
Jerry, thanks so much for being a part of this. On behalf of Boris, you know, we'd just like to thank you because you're an inspiration for both of us. It just
thanks.
To be able to just, you know, look at you, have a little conversation, you know, that answering some questions that people really, you know, want to know about. That's really important. So thank you very much, Jerry.
My pleasure.
La última pregunta.
Now comes the last question.
The last questions. sigue en pie la invitación a venir a Chile y quieres ir a recorrer las viñas de Chile para conocer los vinos chilenos.
Once this COVID thing is settled, you have a formal invitation to come to Chile and have some wine. Do a little bit of traveling, get out to some vineyards, you know, just see what a wonderful country we have here and share a little bit with us.
I'd love to.
Great.
Sí, hay un enólogo que nos va a hacer una ruta por las viñas más importantes del país.
So we have a wine tour all lined up for you. With one of the top wine experts in the country. So
Wow, beautiful. Yeah, I know Chile is making some great wines now.
Así que yo, por mi parte, ya le voy a comprar su botella de vino para hacérsela llegar. Y nada, lo esperamos acá en Chile. Haré lo posible por tenerlo acá y disfrutar de un masterclass con él y poder conocer la ruta de vino de Chile y poder disfrutar de él en persona. Y si es que puedo ir a Los Ángeles, también poder conocerlo allá en persona.
great. So we'll get you some wine, Jerry.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Gracias. Thank you, Jerry, for this time. Te agradezco enormemente este regalo que nos has hecho a todo Latinoamérica y a muchos músicos de todo el mundo. De verdad que te agradezco este tiempo y nada, gracias. Muchas gracias por este tiempo.
Thank you, Jerry. This has been so important for, you know, all of Latin America, you know, so that Spanish-speaking people can, you know, can have an idea. Who is that guy that recorded so much great music with Luis Miguel and Quincy Jones and Michael Jackson and Earth, Wind and Fire? So thank you, Jerry.
My pleasure.
Bye, Jerry.
Bye.
Thank you. See you the other day.
Yeah.
Bye. Muchas
Bye.
gracias. Chao, chao.
Bye, Jerry.